Hey, what's going on, everyone? So we'll wait a little bit for some people to jump in and then we'll rock and roll from there. So I'm having my morning coffee here, actually, or not coffee rather, but organic green tea. I'm doing jasmine green tea this time. I'm a huge fan of green tea in general, and I drink a large variety of them, sencha and jasmine green tea being my favorite. I always definitely drink out of glass, especially if it's really hot green tea or just hot tea or any hot liquids in general, and avoid drinking out of plastic altogether. So that's what I'm having today. And let me just get this set up here, and then we'll rock and roll. Okay, cool. Give me one sec, guys. I'm just going to share this. Boom. Cool. Okay, just found out how to share it actually to other groups. I usually do this from actually my Six Pack Abs group, but lately Facebook changed it so you can't directly do it from there. So I've been doing it from here and kind of learning how to do it. Let me see if I can make sure I got it. Okay, cool. All right, guys. So in the live today, I'm going to be covering like what my medicine cabinet looks like. And I see some people jumped in here. So hello. And if you guys, again, I would love to interact with you guys. So if you guys have any questions, just please let me know. And I don't have the answer to everything, but if I have a good answer to it, I'll definitely be happy to answer it and kind of start a discussion on that topic. Those are always interesting, because you get a lot of interesting questions, and it's always interesting to see where the conversations go. But in the live today, I'm going to mainly focus on what my medicine cabinet looks like. And it is a little bit of a joke because I actually take no medical drugs whatsoever, and actually never have taken any medical drugs outside of just a few minute, very rare, like emergency situations, like in Hawaii. In one case, I got like a really bad ear infection that ended up spreading quite quickly in like less than 24 hours to my jaw, and I wasn't even able to eat pretty much by day 2 just because of the excruciating pain. Michael, good to see you. Thanks for jumping in. And then they put me on antibiotics. I think it was for like a week or two. I forgot exactly. And I also did kind of some steroid drops in my ear, and then it went away quite quickly. So thankful for emergency medicine, obviously, but I'm not taking any medical drugs. I've never taken any medical drugs for any, especially lifestyle and chronic issues like depression or high blood pressure or cholesterol or low testosterone or erectile dysfunction or digestive issues or like whatever. The symptoms are varied. So I'm going to go over like AKA what my medicine cabinet looks like and how I stay medically drug free. And I am going to be 40 years old in like 3 months or so. April 2nd is my birthday, or almost 4 months. So something's working, and I'm still very fit. I have like really good body composition as well, pretty much all year round, and really good blood work, good metabolic hormonal health as well. And here's what's worked for me. And the things I'm going to list right now are not in any hierarchy of importance. So all of them are, I feel, like very important, and some are probably going to be more important in certain aspects of your life than others. Eben, good to see you. Lisa, good to see you as well. So let's get started. So first and foremost, the first like quote unquote medical drug I use is actually having like really good systems for my health and fitness goals. And this is overlooked with pretty much everyone, a tremendous amount of people. A lot of people focus on, sure, I got to eat better, I got to work out more, etc., etc. But they don't keep in mind that the human body and mind unfortunately depreciate like very, very quickly without use, So like, for example, everyone knows this, you could work out and be in great shape for like, 3-4 months consistently, 5 months consistently, and be in amazing shape. And you take like a few weeks off or a month off, or you get sick for a week, and it almost feels like you have to kind of start from scratch. Sure, because of muscle memory and everything, you can kind of recoup your losses quite quickly. But you can see like the human body depreciates very quickly. And in fact, even like, for example, if you're very sick and bedridden and not really using your muscle on a consistent basis, the second you get up, you can see you kind of like already lack balance. The muscles are very poor endurance. They're even twitching. Like, let's say you haven't been to the gym in like 2 or 3 weeks. Like, you can barely lift what you used to. So because the human body and mind are high maintenance, you need systems in place to be very consistent with that level of maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why having good systems in place in terms of time economics is so critical. And a lot of people don't even focus on this and thus aren't able to make their journey a sustainable, lifelong process, at least from one vantage point. There are a myriad of reasons people fall off the bandwagon. And in fact, we're, I think, like almost week 3 into the new year. And I think the statistics I read, I haven't read into it in forever because I just don't follow modern medicine and health advice and stuff like that, because I just think it's a bunch of garbage for the most part. And oftentimes I found by taking steps forward in your health is actually taking steps back and looking at what people did in the past, in particular like before the 1900s. For the most part, there are no absolutes. There are great new advances, but for the most part, it's just a bunch of, pill poppers, medical druggies dealing medical drugs to other pill poppers, and then kind of like a vicious symptom management style of healthcare that really doesn't literally do anything except enrich like a few people and keep people very obese, full of misery and disease, and medically drugged out their entire life. And for example, great example, Americans are the most medically drugged out humans in the history of the human race. The entire history of the human race, and there have been 28 plus human species that have come and gone. And they're the most medically drugged out humans in the entire human race, and yet still the sickest humans in the entire history of the human race. Okay, so clearly, like, something's not working. Like a blind man can see something's not working. A lot of things aren't working in this situation. And if you guys want, we're on the weekend, it's Saturday. You can literally go out anywhere. Walter, you live in a different state. Lisa, I'm sure you live in a different state. Eben, we chat online. You live in a completely different country. Michael, I don't know where you live, but I'm pretty sure it's some random state in the U.S. I want you guys, all of you guys, to step outside literally anywhere, and you'll see that 9 out of 10 Americans are full of obesity, misery, and disease, and medical drug dependence, okay? Literally anywhere. So clearly, the symptom management model of healthcare is not working, and unfortunately, too, if you look at it from an economics perspective, like 80% of personal bankruptcies are filed due to health issues. And 9 out of 10 Americans right now are metabolically unhealthy. So you can see there might be some kind of economic catastrophe in the near future as well, probably worse than what we saw in the 2000, I think, 6 or 7 mortgage collapse, and maybe even worse than the Great Depression as well, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure everyone has had a bad experience dealing with insurance claims and trying to get, the scammy insurance companies to actually pay out their claims and stuff of that sort. So medical drug one, what I use is having good systems in place. So one example of having a good system in place is like, for example, I work out first thing in the morning because I find that I feel a lot better throughout the day. And on top of that, my mind is more clear first thing in the morning. And also, once you get the workout done, it doesn't really matter what comes up in the rest of the day because the workout is finished anyways. And that's it. So I'm fairly consistent with that. And then, like, for example, once I come home, Johnny, good to see you. Walter as well. Once I come home from the workout, I have a tray. I put some parchment paper on that tray. I throw, like, for example, like 1.5 pounds of meat and a whole bunch of non-starchy vegetables and maybe some starchy vegetables like potatoes or yams or whatever. And then just put it in the oven for 30 minutes or whatever. And then while it's cooking, I take a shower and get ready for the day. By the time I'm done with the shower, the food is pretty much done at that point. I put it in actually 2 glass Tupperware containers, and I'll tell you why 2. So I eat 3 meals a day, but I use 2 glass Tupperware containers. And I eat the first one right away, and then I fill up the second glass Tupperware container again. That way it reduces the need to be able to wash so many dishes. And the advantage of using an oven and a tray with parchment paper is that there's no cleanup, because oftentimes the cleanup is quite time intensive. And I only work 2 days a week as well, but I still don't want to spend my whole entire day just cleaning in the kitchen and cooking in the kitchen. It's not enjoyable for me personally. And I would rather be spending that time like sleeping more, or studying more, or just getting in longer workouts, or things of this nature, because those are my core values, and that's just what's enjoyable to me. And then I put the 2 remaining glass Tupperware containers in the fridge, and then I just eat those meals as they arise throughout the day. So like, for example, I would eat the second meal. Let's say the first meal was eaten around like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. The second meal is usually around like 2 or 3. And the third meal is usually around like 5 or 6 or something of that sort. Johnny, good to see you. Tim as well. Good to see you guys. Again, you guys, if you guys have any questions, please ask. I'll be happy to answer any of them if I know the answer to it. If not, I'm sure I can give you some solid resources on where to find your answers. So that's just one example of having systems in place that save you a lot of time and automate a lot of your health and fitness goals. This is critical to understand, especially if you're working full time. This is so important to master, because again, if your systems are too cumbersome, they create too much friction, and they take up too much time, it's not likely for you to do them for long periods of time. And since the human body, once again, and mind depreciate quite quickly without use, you want systems in place that result in good time economics that allow you to attend to those health and fitness goals very, very, very consistently. I really can't stress that enough. And a lot of people are going to overlook that, and they're going to go, well, I need just to change my diet and work out more, so I'll just do that. And unfortunately, what they're trying to do is they're trying to build a house on top of a poor, unsustainable foundation. And obviously, that's not how strong structures are built. You find solid ground first, then you build a solid foundation, and then you build a house on top of it. And what people try to do is they have an unsustainable, poor foundation, and then they try to build a house on top of it. And on top of that, most of the time, the house structure itself sucks too. Like, they do keto, fasting, trendy diet, ABC, fill in the blank. They take Ozempic, whatever, anything but actually, doing the due diligence to do the proper research to get on a program that actually works for you. And no fad diet, bullshit diet, that's what I call them, the cockroach diets, are ever going to work long term. Look, we have more diets now than ever, and Americans are more obese than ever, okay? So they're not going to work. I've never seen people become happy and healthy just drowning themselves in medical drugs either. And I've ironically never seen a happy and healthy person need any medical drugs. So why not just focus on being happy and healthy instead of drugging yourself to death? And I know there's a lot of marketing around, oh, it's medicine and this and that, but really it's just like a medical drug. And I remember one of my friends one time read, he kind of like in a group, oh, would you eat this food? And he listed secretly the side effects from a certain antidepressant if this food caused these side effects. And literally everyone said no, But then he said, oh, actually, that's not a food. This is just the side effects of like a typical antidepressant. And everyone was like, oh, Anyways, you can't help people. You can't, there's an old saying, I think like, I saw this in like some Italian mobster movie. You can't help someone that doesn't want to get up. Even if you hold them up, it's going to exhaust you personally eventually, and they're going to fall back down anyways. So unfortunately for most people, they're not going to change until they have a life crisis. And that could be like a divorce. That could be a heart attack, a stroke, cancer diagnosis, a bankruptcy, whatever. And even at that, with 20 years of coaching, I rarely see people still make, maybe 25% of people wake up at that point, but usually 75% of people stay asleep and just continue to medically drug themselves into like oblivion, and or do sometimes like socially acceptable things like become a workaholic, and stuff of this sort. Just anything to kind of dissociate, but not, do the honest work of changing the person that's causing the disease and stuff of this sort. At least that's what I've seen. So again, first medical drug I use, having good systems in place. I know, it's not an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety med, so un-American, right? But this is the stuff that actually works to make you healthy and happy, So it's up to you what you want to do, though. This is just what I've used with myself, and then with a myriad of other clients, some clients being here, like I interviewed David a while back at this point. So he's like 61 years old and lost 100 pounds in like 1 year and was able to get rid of his sleep apnea and a couple of other issues I currently forgot off the top of my head, but without the use of medical drugs. And then on top of that, shortly before the program even began, during a fishing trip, he broke his foot and we weren't even able to work out like the first 3 or 4 months or something of that sort. He still lost like 30 or 40 pounds during that time frame, just like sitting on the couch for the most part. Anyways, okay, second medical drug that I use, using movement as medicine. I know, not high blood pressure meds, right? This is kind of crazy medicine here. But using movement as medicine, and what do I do there? I've been sticking for like 20 years to like an undulating periodization program. That's what I tend to use with a lot of my clients as well. And it works very well, not only to dramatically improve their body composition, but to help them aesthetically and with their blood work as well and stuff of that sort. I personally try to focus on training for aesthetics simply because that's what interests me. But any kind of physical exercise is great. Every form of exercise has positives and negatives. You just have to kind of determine your core values, what you're trying to accomplish, and go with that, So for me, like I love weightlifting. Not so much like powerlifting or Olympic lifting, but I love weightlifting and using it to like aesthetically improve my physique. I've never had to motivate myself ever to go to the gym to train that way at all. So it just came like very natural. It was just one of those, I was just lucky enough at a very early age to discover, one of those natural loves of your life, you know what I mean? And kind of stuck with it. So I've been doing it very consistently. I've actually been in the health field for like 39 years already, give or take, okay? I was raised by my grandmother on an off-grid farm in Ukraine, and I learned about biodynamic and sustainable living through her. And that set the foundation of how to live like a human being for me, and understanding the reference point between like, hey, if you just live like a human being and sleep normally and eat, natural, biodynamically raised or organic food and move around daily, have a lot of dynamic movement throughout your day, even if it's low intensity, etc., you'll be happy and healthy. And you won't need to be medically drugged out like your entire life, And then my dad got me into the gym very early too. I think like at 10 or 11, I was working out with him. And that kind of set the precedence. And I had a lot of great mentors over the years and stuff of that sort. So everyone kind of taught me something, you know what I mean? And then I took what I needed and kind of applied it to my individual needs. Because it's also important to remember, guys, with listening to people online, even with me, you have to understand that nature is a novelty generator. So everyone's going to be different. I can't tell you what's going to work for you. You know what I mean? I could just tell you what's worked for me. And anytime anyone online is saying anything in an absolute, like you must do this, you must do that, I wouldn't listen to them personally, because it's kind of like the equivalent of like you show up to a doctor's office and they didn't even talk to you. They don't even know your situation. They're like, here, take this medical drug, So that would come off weird to pretty much everyone, because they're like, well, you don't even know what's going on with me. But yet people listen to people online blindly all the time. And even if they're very competent, the influencer is very competent, at the end of the day, they never met you personally. So they don't know your specific situation, and it's impossible to give a lot of especially health advice, dude. It's like, how people say, it's not rocket science, implying that rocket science is difficult, which it is a very difficult, complex field. But I think one of the biggest mysteries of the universe is actually even like how human consciousness forms, or like the mystery of the human mind. That's where the complexity is, you know what I mean? So someone giving you answers in an absolute with something that's inevitably so complex is silly and like a huge, huge red flag. So on top of training for aesthetics, I also emphasize a lot of core and spine health training as well. In particular, training your core to coordinate as a synchronized unit. So a lot of people, they think their core is just like the rectus abdominis, meaning those six-pack abs that that are seen in magazines, and they think, oh, that's your whole entire midsection. But really, your core, I would argue, is your whole entire body. But the big players are like your lats, okay, your quadratus lumborum, the rectus abdominis, the internal external oblique, the transverse abdominis, the multifidi, also your pelvic floor muscles and your butt are all part of your core. Those are the big players. But I train them in a way to have them coordinate as one unit. So that way they create spine stiffness and stability under weight-bearing loads. Because inevitably the spine is kind of tricky. It needs to do two opposing tasks. It needs to be flexible because you don't want to be walking around like Robocop or like Frankenstein, right? But it needs to be able to bear loads as well. So you need a good training program to be able to develop those muscles appropriately, so that you're able to do those two tasks and also have good spine hygiene inside and outside of the gym, and just have good mechanics and balance in your physique as well. Those are all important factors, and that could be like a multiple hour conversation, many day conversation just on that topic alone. I mean, there are like millions of, probably not millions, but like hundreds of books written on just that subject alone, okay? And I lift weights 5 days a week. I either switch it up between like an upper and lower body or a push, pull, and lower body layout. I found those to be most successful with myself for producing a very lean and attractive physique, and also like very successful with a lot of my clients. I don't use it with all of my clients, but a lot of them I do. And not only does their blood work improve and they become healthy enough to get off of like a myriad of medical drugs, like Tim Petra, one of our group members, was able to get off 9 drugs in just 6 months, 9 medical drugs, okay, that he's been on for like almost 2 decades and stuff of that sort. And then, you guys, I post testimonials constantly of people becoming healthy enough to not need medical drugs. And the thing is, I don't even focus on the symptom with these people. I just focus on getting these people to live like human beings again. And ironically, when they do that, they become healthy enough to not need it, and their metabolic health improves, their hormonal health improves, etc., etc. And then also their body creates like a huge change. Oftentimes, I mean, dude, go into any doctor's office, I mean, I don't see testimonials all over their walls, you know, because I think if you did see that, all you would see is like an obese person that didn't have medical drugs before, and then their after picture would be an obese person that's on medical drugs after, you know, and then obviously something's not working, okay? But it's up to you to open your eyes, because I cannot show you anything if you just refuse to if you refuse to open your eyes. So it's very basic. So that's the second medical drug I use. Using movement as medicine, actual exercise. Imagine that, crazy, right? The third medical drug I'm currently on is learning about central nervous system management. And Demir, good to see you. Ridvan, sorry, I can't pronounce your name. I'm really bad with names, guys. But good to see you. Thanks for jumping in. David Larson is in the house as well. Central nervous system management. Hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. But central nervous system management is huge, okay? And the central nervous system management is basically like your brain, your spinal cord, your spine, and all of the nerve roots that then come out of your spinal cord into your visceral tissue and muscle tissue, etc., okay? And the central nervous system, and I've spoken about this subject so many times, but it's so important because it's so overlooked. The central nervous system doesn't do that well with overexposure to microstressors, okay? And microstressors being like, you got to pay this bill, then you got to get in the traffic here, then this deadline is coming up here, and then you got to run over here and run like 50 errands during your 1 or 2 days of day off, and it's like really crowded during those days because everyone else is running errands on the weekends too, and stuff of that sort. All these little things, they're not like mega stressful, but cumulatively, they're quite stressful on the central nervous system. And especially overstimulation with being on social media all day. If you're in the city, there's a tremendous amount of stimulation too, so the central nervous system is constantly amped up. There's this car there, this person here, pollution to deal with sometimes, etc., etc. Cost of living is quite high in a lot of cities. Like I just got back from Seattle, and to me it was a surprise that a person making $80,000 a year in that city qualifies for assisted living, and stuff of that sort. So all those things provide stressors, you know what I mean? Financial stress, personal stress. A lot of people have internal stress too, in the sense that maybe they have like an internal critic, you know what I mean, that's constantly badgering them. That creates micro stressors, maybe macro stressors as well. So what I focus on is really reducing my stress load and having as little stimulus as possible. Just to make sure your central nervous system has enough recovery time. So the best way it functions is there might be a macro stress, like let's say in modern days, like a huge deadline, right? So that's a macro stress that you barely made. And there's a lot of pressure to make it happen because maybe the company would lose a lot of money if it didn't go through. And then ideally you would have long valleys of nothing going on. So like a few weeks of you're chilling in the forest, you're fishing, you're just working out, you're sleeping in quite a bit, et cetera, et cetera. And then you might have another macro stress again, you know what I mean? You're just going to get in a lot of trouble. And the thing is, I'll answer this in a second, but you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you have these macro stress and then followed by a bunch of micro stressors. Like, yeah, this huge stress, but now I got to deal with all these little stressors all the time, and then another macro stress. That combination is going to wear your adrenals down to the bone, because you got too much cortisol production, and inevitably the human body has a limited supply of everything, right? And it needs cortisol as an alertness hormone, okay? So you have to remember, like, the human mind is encased in a skull and it never sees the outside world. It uses the 5 human senses to kind of gather all of that information, right? So to the mind, you're still like some caveman, you're still some hunter-gatherer out in the forest somewhere without a cell phone and stuff of that sort. So when it's constantly getting these releases of cortisol, it's thinking that, you're being attacked, you know what I mean? You're in a stressful situation. And it knows too that it's a limited supply. So because if your body just stops producing cortisol, you'll go into this kind of like zombie state, right? Non-alertness. And it knows like, oh, if I lose that supply and a tiger leaps out on me, I won't be able to survive. And remember, the central nervous system, its only role is survival in the external world. That's its evolutionary purpose, to get you to survive better in the external world at all costs. So it'll stop producing it eventually, or decrease the production of it quite a bit. And then you'll feel very tired, your sex drive will be very low, your recovery from workouts will be very low. It's either you probably will develop really poor sleeping patterns or sleep a tremendous amount, but either way, it's going to be kind of like really offset too much of anything and stuff of this sort. And then, of course, once your HPA axis regulation is all out of whack, then you'll see the biology of your entire body will eventually start collapsing, because, inevitably there are 12 human systems, and no one system is more important than the other. They all work as a team to keep you alive. And when one system starts kind of going downhill or acting as an anchor, it kind of drags all of the other systems with it. And in the extreme case, you're just going to end up dying and stuff of that sort. In the more typical case, you just end up being on like a myriad of medical drugs, each of which cause various symptoms, negative symptoms that need further medical drugs to help combat those symptoms and stuff of that sort. So Central nervous system management is huge. Again, that's a really long topic. I actually did a video on it a few weeks ago, so you can check that out if you want more details on that. But that's the third medical drug I'm on. Learning how to manage your central nervous system and living in tandem with how your central nervous system has evolved to optimally function and recover. And that's it, you know. I know not as fancy as anti-anxiety meds and stuff of that sort, but from my experience, way better results. Okay. So fourth medical drug I'm on is, and this one's controversial. I get like a lot of flack for this one. Is I only work 2 days a week, and I've been doing that since I was like 31. Yeah, 31 or 32 to be exact. I'm already 39 now, and even before 31, I think for a few years before then, I just worked 3 days a week, but more in person. So now I work 2 days a week, but remotely, okay? And a lot of people are like, oh, you know, that's so weird. But hey, dude, like just 10,000 years ago, literally everyone was a hunter-gatherer. No one was a specialist. Everyone was a generalist. No one was working 8 to 10 hours a day behind a desk. Nobody. And so how I'm living now is not out of the ordinary. It's actually just ordinary, because I don't think, from my observation, and the stats are very obvious, most people's central nervous system cannot handle the amount of hours most people are working. If they could, we wouldn't see so many people struggling with their mental and physical health. And there are a lot of variables that go into it, for sure, but that's one of the variables. Even when I was doing a lot of corporate health lectures, it was literally almost impossible. I maybe ran into 2 people that were doing mentally and physically well after years of doing corporate health lectures. So clearly those crazy hours of work, especially sedentary work, aren't working for most people. And again, just the Homo sapien is 200,000 years old. There are, again, 28 human species that have come and gone over like a few million years. And only in recent history have people been locked down in specialist type of occupations the way they are today, you know? And sure enough, just focusing on the American population here, again, Americans are the sickest humans in human history, and yet the most medically drugged out humans in human history, but yet remain the sickest, et cetera, et cetera. So clearly something's not working. I'm almost 40 and in really good health, and these are the drugs I'm taking, and it's working, at least for me and for the clients that have come in for my coaching and stuff of that sort. Okay, so there might be something to it, there might be not, but that's up to you to decide. I already know the answer and I know it works, but of course I don't want to force anyone to come to the same obvious conclusion. Okay, so let's see, fifth medical drug I use. This one I'm just going to touch on briefly, but it's important. Sometimes the mind can be deceiving. So there's a lot of areas of where you can study this subject, but it's important to understand that the mind is always changing its mind. That's the nature of the mind, and it tends to be very externally driven, external world driven, the mind being part of the central nervous system, right? And since the mind is always changing its mind, you can't quite rely upon it, okay, because it's constantly changing. So like today, you know, you're dating someone and you like them. Tomorrow, you don't like them. The third day, you're indifferent. Same with jobs. Like today, you like your job. Tomorrow, you don't like your job, etc. So it's always changing its mind, so it can't be relied upon. So you got to be like very careful, overly identifying with the contents of the mind and then presuming it's you, because that could be very misleading oftentimes, especially, I forgot the exact stat, but the typical person has like a couple hundred or 1,000 negative thoughts per day. So obviously if you overly identify with those thoughts, that's not going to be good for your health, you know? So that's the fifth one, the fifth medical drug I take. Side effects are super crazy. I warn you with that. You know, you might see great looking skin, lower blood pressure, peace of mind. So again, side effects are super crazy, I've noticed. Not needed. Okay. The next one, the next medical drug I use, sleep. I know, I know. A lot of times people are like, oh man, this stuff is so easy to understand. I know you understand it. I know it. But are you actually doing it? That's the real question. And literally, I would honestly say, literally almost every American is not doing it, because 90% of Americans wouldn't be metabolically healthy if they were even having a glimpse, a little hint of doing any of this stuff. No way. So sleep. And I try to sleep between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. But usually I actually found what worked well for me is 11 p.m. or 10:30 p.m. to about 7 a.m. Everyone is a little bit different, so the scale can shift a little teeny bit from my experience. But typically the body repairs itself physically from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and mentally from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., okay? So I really try to optimize those hours. And I really try to be very religious with that. Even on the weekends, I go to sleep at roughly the same exact hours. I try to have a really good bedtime ritual and a really good morning ritual as well. The bedtime ritual I find is especially important because it helps then your central nervous system recognize specific patterns that are geared towards you actually falling asleep, okay? And it helps with deeper sleep. I find having like a very cold environment, like maybe 67 degrees, 66 degrees to be ideal. And usually I try to set the room to that temperature a few hours before I go to sleep and stuff of that sort. But everyone's different. Obviously, you got to be careful with stimulants and stuff of that sort. I really don't drink coffee, maybe like once a week randomly, maybe once every other week. I usually just have like green tea here that you see me drinking. I avoid like energy drinks and stuff of that sort. Randy, good to see you. Christian, good to see you as well. Hey, Mark, thanks for jumping in. And stuff of that sort. So sleep, that's another medical drug I take, definitely not Ambien or whatever other bullshit sleeping drugs there are. That's the sleeping drug I take, actually sleeping. And then if I can't sleep, if I have a monkey mind, racing mind, I get to the root cause of what's causing that. You know what I mean? Too much activity, too much uncertainty, etc., etc. And the thing with sleeping aids too, what I've seen is typically people take a sleeping drug and it works for a bit, and then it stops working. Then they have to up the dose, and it works for a bit. Then it stops working. Then they have to up the dose, and then at a certain point, you'll see they just stop working altogether, even if you've maxed out the dose. Because from my observation, managing symptoms only yields more symptoms over time. Always. Because the problem is you never change the person, the environment, or the behavior patterns that led to those specific health issues. So obviously they persist, because you're not inevitably meeting the problem at the level of the problem. Let's say with most people, the level is at every level, I would say. The biological level, thinking dimension, emotional dimension, spiritual dimension, all lacking, all in the negative. Especially like a common symptom when a person's overweight, that is like a symbol of how much inflammation obviously they have in their body, but also a symbol of how much in a deficit they are at the biological level, at all 12 systems of the human body, at the emotional, at the spiritual level, at the thinking dimension as well, etc., etc. Because there's a lot that has to happen at all of those levels, and a lot in the wrong direction chronically for a long period of time to lead to all of that, to lead to a person becoming, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. So another medical drug I eat whole food. Crazy, I know. I don't eat processed food. I mainly rely on biodynamic and wild game. Do you have to eat biodynamic food? I'd like to see you eat that food, but even if you eat whole food that's even factory farmed, that's already a huge upgrade in the right direction. That's already amazing. If you're just eating fish, meat, vegetables, fruit, just eating that stuff, you're already doing amazing. But then if you upgrade to obviously biodynamic food, biodynamically raised food, or biodiverse food, or wild game, for example, that is the apex of food production, because Mother Nature has been farming for forever, you know? It's been producing food. She's been producing food for forever, and she knows how to do it right, you know? So again, hunter-gatherers 10,000 years ago, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, they didn't die at a young age. If you take child mortality out of the equation, they actually lived to be quite old age. And they basically didn't know how to read, had no education in nutrition, health sciences, movement sciences, bullshit sciences, and still thriving and very healthy, okay? And in fact, my grandmother that lived off-grid her whole entire life and never plugged into society, you know, wasn't an educated medical doctor, wasn't a registered dietitian, wasn't a biomechanics master, but lived into very old age without using any medical drugs whatsoever, without going to the doctors a single freaking time, okay? And in fact, like, I've been coaching professionally for 20 years, and maybe on like a handful of occasions ran into other health professionals that were as healthy as my grandmother with literally no health education, okay? If you go to like a nutritionist convention or a psychologist convention, you'll see these people are broken. The nutritionist convention, it should be retitled like an obesity convention, because literally anytime I go to like a medical convention or like a registered dietitian or nutritionist convention, literally like 70% of the people there are overweight. And just a bunch of pill poppers, again, pill poppers trying to heal other pill poppers with more pill popping. That's it. And that's why nobody's getting better. So another core value or another medical drug I use are just identifying my core values. Okay. This one's huge, and this one is actually like a lifelong practice as well. All right. So core values being are things that are important to you or your conditioned self, right? So like for me, working 2 days a week remotely is important. You know, having very slow mornings where you actually have time to get up and not feel rushed is very important as well. Being able to, you know, work out 5 days a week, in particularly with weights for aesthetics, is important to me. That's my core value. Having enough time to read at least 2 books a month, that's important for me. Continued education is important for me. I try to take like 1 to 2 courses every single year. I've been doing that for already 20 years. And also typically hire like a mentor like every other year for something, you know, because if you find the right mentor, it's such a huge life upgrade and will accelerate your journey so much. And also just remember that you can't solve a problem unless it's due to dumb luck, which almost never happens. You can't solve a problem with the same belief system that led to the problem. It just doesn't happen that way, unfortunately. And that's what a lot of people try to do, especially with their New Year's resolution goals. And especially even at this point, I forgot exactly which date it is today. I think we're on week 3 already. I think like close to 70 or 80% of people already gave up on their New Year's resolution goals. And again, that's because they're trying to solve a problem with the same belief system that led to the problem, which doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like giving your money to the thief that's stealing your money. It's like, come on, man. Like, use common sense here. So core values, being very crystal clear with them, is important, okay? Like eating organic and biodynamic food is another core value for me. So I don't even eat out. Usually what I do is I just go meet friends for tea or coffee. I know it's not organic tea or coffee, but it's a good substitute. Although I do see more places popping up that are serving organic tea and organic coffee. Like here, I'm visiting my parents in Vegas, and there's a place that specifically just serves organic coffee. I forgot the name of it. I wish I had it. I could have given him a shout out. James, good to see you. And James Clark is in the house as well. James Long as well. Good to see you guys. Mark, Christian. So that's what I do. I do not eat out. I mean, it's extremely rare. And if I do, it's maybe sushi sometimes. And I try to pick the fish varieties that are not farmed. Okay. But honestly, I love just not eating out and going out more for like a Turkish tea house or something like that. I find it's much easier to socialize too when you're kind of drinking versus eating. It's not as expensive. It's a fraction of the cost as well, and you still get to socialize with your friends and all that stuff. And I've actually gotten a few of my friends on board with that, and they enjoy it a lot more too, and stuff of that sort. So, okay, core values, but being crystal clear about them and getting your week to align with them. It's not enough just to be clear and conscious of your core values. You actually got to get your week to reflect those core values. So if my core value is working 2 days a week and I'm working 6 days a week, clearly there's a misalignment in my core values. There's a story gap. And the wider the story gap is in your life, in various aspects of your life, the more maladaptive behavior you're going to have to form in your life. And that maladaptive behavior could look like abusing food, abusing alcohol, or maybe abusing socially acceptable activities, like becoming a workaholic, disappearing in your work just to dissociate from the fact that you're not living in alignment with your goals, or unsafe sex practices or medical drug dependence. All of these are signs of maladaptive behavior, coping mechanisms, okay? And a lot of it could be tied back to a misalignment in core values. Because from my observation, when a person is living in alignment with their core values, how possibly can you be miserable if you're doing what you want to be doing and being the person you want to be being, So there you go. That's the other medical drug I use. I know. Not as cool as antidepressants, but hey, it gets the job done. Totally did workaholic for a long time, Christian mentioned. Yeah, I mean, I did too, Christian, I unfortunately lost my way as well, more in the beginning of my career. When I graduated from college, I also, because I didn't know any better, I was actually clear on my core values, but succumbed to social pressures. I didn't know any better, so after college, all my friends were working like super crazy hours, and I thought that was just the adult thing to do, so I did the same exact thing. And I was coaching 6 days a week, and everyone was around me was working crazy hours too. And I thought this is like what it is to be like an adult, and I was successful and totally booked and all that stuff. And it was fun for a little while for sure, but it kind of really wore me down quite quickly. I did a long podcast on this before. Yeah, but in short, I mean, it's like I started getting up very miserable. My sleeping wasn't great. I felt always fatigued, tired, etc., etc. I didn't have enough time for my workouts. I felt everything like had to be at the minute. You know what I mean? My whole day had to be like, I need to be here, 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 here. Like exactly very task driven, which is stressful to be like that too. And I got worn out. And then luckily too, I had, my grandmother as a reference point to what a balanced life looked like. And a few great people that I happen to run into coincidentally, like, Paul Chek, Jator Pierre, John McMullen. There are various other people in just not professional, but more friend circles as well. Forgive me for forgiving your guys' names because you were an important part of my journey. But they help remind me like, hey, this is not normal and this is not how people are meant to live. And the reason you're having all these symptoms is because you're not living like a human being, And unfortunately in the US, it's especially a lot of people on social media are kind of like working through the roof, you're not doing your job unless you're dying for your job. You got to hustle 24/7, you know what I mean? Work all these crazy hours. And if you're on social media too much, that's all you see in the spotlight. That's all what's celebrated. But if you know these people in real life, trust me, they're very broken. And some of them do admit to it. I'm not going to mention any names. I don't like calling people out. But there are a lot of very popular figures in like the tech area that even in some degree or another that I may look up to for one reason, maybe their creativity, their ability to face their fears and pursue what they want and stuff of that sort. But inevitably, they also say like, people wouldn't want to be me if they knew how I lived my life, And there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of times people just see the glamour and the success, those sugar highs of success, the nice car, the social recognition, but they don't realize to sustain that how an unhappy existence a lot of people have to live. You know what I mean? There's actually a really good book called Civilized to Death. Christopher, I believe the author's name was Christopher Ryan or Chris Ryan. He has a lot of great, he's been a guest on a lot of great podcasts. So just check it out. He brings up a lot of really good points on the unsustainable nature of society, which I agree with a lot of his points, not every single one of his points, but a lot of his points in terms of the unsustainable nature of society. Society inevitably, there are like various good aspects to it, but also what I see or hear often is a lot of people just don't really feel that alive living in society either. You know what I mean? It's more of kind of like a grind and stuff of that sort for most people. Okay, 7. Another medical drug I take and I'm addicted to is hot baths in steam rooms. And I know, super dangerous, a myriad of side effects, including great looking skin, replenished adrenal glands, etc., etc. But yeah, I try to do like a hot bath every Wednesday night to help reboot for the second half of the week, and every Sunday to help get ready for a new week. Hey, Ahmet and Clarissa, what's up? I haven't seen you two guys in a long time. So Clarissa is like a friend and a former client of mine too. She had a newborn baby that she's pictured with here. Yeah, I'm so happy for her. I've known her since, I don't know, for like forever at this point, maybe 12 years or 15 years. And so it's crazy to see her mature into like the mother role at this point. When I think we met, I think we're like in high school or something like that. So it's been like forever already. So great to see you. Good to stay in touch as well. Good to see you still hitting the weights in the gym with your kid. I was just telling people on the podcast, that's how my dad got me into the gym. He got me into the gym at 10 and I was lifting weights with him. And that's how I got introduced to it. And oftentimes that's what you guys have to do as parents. Remember, kids are watching you and they learn most of their behaviors from watching you, not what you tell them. So if they see you, living unsustainable lifestyles and not being healthy, they're going to be the same way, And the reason I'm so consistent with it is, again, I grew up with my grandmother on that biodynamic farm for a long time. And then I was also raised by health conscious parents as well. So it just naturally got passed down to me. And it was just instinctual, you know what I mean? And if you guys didn't have that in your circle, that's okay too. You just have to get around friends and maybe hire a mentor or pick up a lot of books on health and create those friends then. Create that circle. So hot baths. Okay. Another medical drug that I tend to rely on is, it's not for everyone, but it's worked for me in various degrees. So, okay. So Clarissa said, yes, you too. Thank you. Yeah, great to see you, Clarissa. David, how frequently and how much time each visit when you go to the sauna? So the sauna I typically do once a week. You could do it more often if you like. And I've been doing it for a long time. So I worked up a tolerance for like 30 or 40 minutes. One thing I like to do too, it depends on your gym layout. You can do like a sauna for like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, for example. This is what's worked for me. Everyone is different. And then go jump in a cold shower really quick. You know what I mean? Like just rinse off with a really cold shower, then go back in the sauna. And I do that cycle maybe like 5 times and then call it a day. So the good thing is your skin will have this like very youthful glow to it, like pretty much all week, like very, very youthful glow. Your pores will be very, very clean. Some other things I do for skincare, I don't use any skincare products. I just wash with water, and I have goat milk soap, or goat soap, or goat milk soap. I don't know what they call it. But basically, I just use water for the most part for skincare, because skincare is going to be 100% reliant on your lifestyle and your diet. That's it. If you have like a solid diet, especially a diet rich in like omega-3s, you'll have good looking skin, I found. Okay. And I've seen this happen with various clients over the years, various ethnicities, age groups, etc., and stuff of that sort. But I don't rely on any chemical face washes or any face washes at that or anything of that sort. So, Quantum psychology is great. I actually have one of his books here. So quantum psychology as presented by like Stefan Walensky. This is like one of my favorite of his books. I think he has close to like 15 or 20 books or so, quite a bit. But that's actually a great resource as well that I found very helpful for me, and doing like Enneagram work to identify traits of your conditioned self or your false self, some people refer to. And that way you can find ways of how to manage your personality in sustainable ways, and be conscious of when you are going down paths of unsustainability or when you're going down paths of sustainability. And those could be good resources for some people, okay? And then objectively, some blood work I get done annually once a year are like my body fat I actually don't get done often anymore because I just don't really feel like I need to. But I try to keep my body fat between 10 or 12%. The ideal for males is always going to be 10 or 12%, I found, okay? And then the other metabolic markers I take are like blood pressure, average blood glucose, triglycerides, HDL, and I do total testosterone and free testosterone also. And in terms of the numbers, I try to keep the blood pressure at like 120 over 80 or a little bit below. The average blood glucose from 70 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. The triglycerides are below 150, HDL higher than 39. And total test, I would like to see always between 900 and 1100 nanograms per deciliter, which is able to be done even into your 50s and 60s, okay? I've done this with many clients. I think my most recent one, I got to double check. Most recent one was Charlie. It's like he was 56 or 57. I forget his age. But he had chronically low total test his whole entire life, and was actually obese his whole entire life. In 11 months, we got him to lose 90 pounds and actually nearly double his test from like 300, even more than double. We went from like 280, I think, and he finished at like 350 or 360 nanograms per deciliter at 56. But I guarantee if he keeps up with everything, he'd probably get it up to 900, no problem, even although he's going into his late 50s. And I also do a stool test like once a year as well. So I do a Biome FX stool test. I just ordered this through a registered dietitian I work with, Lori. But you would need to find a registered dietitian or contact me, and I can give you her contact information and stuff of that sort. And she could order it for you. And that way you have like a good reading of how your digestive system is doing as well, because that's a very important system in the human body that assimilates nutrients that help support all of the systems of the human body, okay? So that needs to be optimally functioning too. So there are a few other things I do, but those are really the big players. Those are the medical drugs I use and I'm addicted to, okay? And I could honestly say if there are side effects to these medical drugs, they're almost not noticeable. The results are great. What I've seen over the years is great looking skin, great looking hair, nails, great teeth, no cavities. I've never had any cavities or anything. Perfectly straight teeth as well. Lean and muscular all year round. I graduated as a straight A college graduate as well. Okay, so you're able to finish intellectual tasks or academic tasks just fine. On zero medical drugs whatsoever. Metabolic panel looks great year after year. Hormonal panel looks great year after year, etc., etc. So, I don't know, clearly something's working, right? And I would find working much better than the average American, what's working for them. So Clarissa asked, how often do you consume red meat, and do you worry this can affect triglyceride levels? Actually, that's interesting you asked that, Clarissa, because right now I'm down to like 2 days a week. And I'm very picky about my red meat sources, as you know. So I eat only 100% grass-fed beef from AGA certified ranches. So some good companies for you guys to check out are, you can Google this like Force of Nature Meats. I forgot it's like .com, but just Google Force of Nature Meats or search whatever search engine you like to use. Another good, so Clarissa, for your area, check out number 5, Bar Beef. I actually worked with Frank Fitzpatrick when I was writing my second book, and he basically raises wild cattle. 100% of their life is spent on pasture, and we process the animals out in the field too. They weren't sent to the slaughter facility, okay? And the bulls are not clipped, they're not dehorned, they're not altered in any way. They're just left out in the field. And the good thing is he's been doing this for he's had the same herd for 30 years. And what he did was just let the weak cattle die out naturally. So the ones that got sick, we didn't treat them or anything. And over the years, the ones that survived were the ones that are able to breed and survive and breed children that are able to survive optimally in that environment as well. And now he has a herd that's very resilient to anything that's going on in that environment. So he doesn't use any vaccines, no medicines, no antibiotics, no beta agonists, no steroids, no synthetic fertilizers, synthetic biocides of any sort, etc., etc. So I'm very picky. That's a great resource. But for a lot of you guys, azgrassraisedbeef.com might be a good resource. Or you can go to americangrassfed.org or .com. I forgot exactly. And scroll to the bottom of the website and click on the interactive map. And you will find legitimate grass-fed operations in the U.S. in any state. And remember, a lot of people deliver too, so you don't have to have it exactly in your state. And if you contact them, you're oftentimes just dealing with the owner directly, okay? And stuff of that sort. So 2 days a week. Now, with the triglyceride comment, I used to eat it way more often, like 5 or 6 days a week. And year after year, I do get this panel done that I mentioned every single year. I've never seen my triglycerides ever go over 150 milligrams per deciliter, ever. Even being a high red meat consumer, okay? Not even close, ever. So in fact, I finished the training program recently with a IT guy, Igor. I forget exactly how he structured his nutrition plan, but I believe he was eating red meat quite often. And his triglycerides before the program were 3 something. So that's extremely high. And that's before the program. And on the program, he was eating more red meat products, and his triglycerides actually fell below 150 in a, I think, 5 to 6 month period. I forgot exactly. But if you scroll down in my feed, you'll see my interview with him. So, so that's my experience with beef products and triglycerides. But my meat sources, I tend to stick to like elk, deer, wild fish, grass-fed, grass-finished beef and bison, and wild boar as well. Those are my primary meat sources. Okay, I forgot exactly what topic we're on, but I think that concludes it, guys. So those are the medical drugs I'm on. They're clearly working well. I don't notice any side effects. I feel great. My sleeping is great. My strength is going up as well all the time. I'm able to enjoy outdoor activities. I don't have any joint pain. I don't have any back pain. I'm able to go to the bathroom thoroughly every single day. Don't have any constipation issues, etc., etc. So up to you to decide, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's always up to you guys, but hope this is a good eye-opener on what healthy living and good healthcare actually looks like for the 1 out of 10 people that are even interested in living a life of non-normalized pathology. So wishing you guys the best. David asks, or he's making a statement here, you are the best coach I have ever experienced in my lifetime. Thank you. I promise you guys that's not a paid advertisement, okay? David is generally saying that. So I appreciate you guys, and I know most people, they're going to continue to live a life of mental and physical pathology and think that's normal, and that's okay. My message isn't for them. My message is for the people that are looking for honest answers and how to go on an honest health journey. And the only thing I could do is share with you what's worked for me and for my clients. And then it's up to you to decide from there, okay? So wishing you guys all the best, and have a good weekend, okay? And David, good to see you. And again, Clarissa, great to see you as well. And happy for your new adventures and stuff of that sort. All right, guys, have a good one. Take care.